within that leak, there were 70,000 pictures of women, IDs, addresses. So the woman that I spoke to, she saw the map, clicked on it, zoomed in, and it was her address exactly pinpointed on the map.
Worst case nightmare, isn't it?
So frightening.
If you've ever used a dating app, you've probably asked yourself, is the person really who they say they are? Is the chat going to be kind of awkward? And most importantly, will I be safe? And that's why the T dating advice app really blew up in the US. It offered women a chance to do background checks on men, so they could find out if they were actually married, if they were using a fake identity, or even a registered sex offender. But in July, that backfired. Hackers broke into the app and they leaked women's data and photos online. So today, you're going to hear how that breach has affected women and whether apps like this actually make dating safer, or do they create new risks for men and women? I'm Hannah. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service. And here in the studio with me is Jackie Wakefield, the BBC's global disinformation reporter, to spill the tea. Hey, Jackie.
Hey.
What has your experience of online dating been like? Because on paper, the T app sounds like a good idea. How did it work, or how is it meant to work?
I've not had a lot of experience online dating, but I think as women in particular, we've heard our fair share of horror stories from friends of dates gone wrong, of a guy that they sing cheating on someone with them, of not being who they say they are. And I think that's where things like the T app come into it, right? So the T app, the purpose was to keep women safe from dating so that they could share their experiences and almost review men that they had dated or men that they could potentially go on dates with to check.
Is it a red flag?
Exactly.
What are the red flags with this guy?
Exactly. So there were many things that you could check. You could check red flags, green flags. You could check if he was a registered sex offender, if he was married, if it was a catfish. But there was also a lot of tea or gossip on the site as well. So that sometimes got out of hand.
And by catfish, of course, we mean someone stealing or using someone else's identity. Just someone not saying who they are. And we've all heard these kinds of stories. They're so common. And this app, it was only open for women, right? And they had to upload a photo or an ID of themselves to make sure that they were women to be able to get in, right? And the whole point of it only being available for women was controversial, but it was also really popular, right?
It was super popular. So it's been number 1, number 2, number 3 in the US App Store for months now. It's hard to get an idea of the exact number of users, but reportedly it's around the 1 to 2 million mark. And it went really viral in July. But of course, with that virality came a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
So obviously in a space where there are only women speaking about men and men can't access it, men weren't too happy about that, which is kind of fair enough. There was a lot of unproven gossip on the site, a lot of things that really aren't required for women's safety. That if
like how are his abs?
Yeah, well, things like that. And like, I mean, I saw one post where a woman had posted a guy, and some of the comments were like, "This guy's definitely gay." They have no idea. It's a complete stranger. And what I saw online, the male reaction is that they were saying, like, I want to get my photo taken off this app. A lot of this is untrue. And there was a lot of frustration on that side as well.
It could be reputationally damaging. I mean, defamation, right, could be what it comes down to if people are saying things about someone that could damage their reputation. And actually, this wasn't the first app of its kind. There was this Facebook group or a series of Facebook groups. It was the Are We Dating the Same Guy groups. I mean, that sounds like it could be a really useful tool because with online dating, it'd be so easy for a guy to just double life and have multiple women on the go at the same time. But you've talked a little bit about some of the things that women were posting. Where was the line here between, protecting women and potentially shaming men?
It's such a grey area because on the one part, like if it was you and me, if we'd been on a date with the same guy and you'd had a really negative experience, you could just share that with me in private over a coffee and no questions asked, really. But the fact of the matter is this is posted online for anyone to see, whether that's Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook pages or the T app, where millions of people could potentially see it. And that's where you kind of get into trouble. I mean, whisper networks between women about negative experiences with men, they've existed forever. But when it does go online and it is for everyone to see, that's when there needs to be some way of like verifying the information, because otherwise the T app in particular, where men couldn't log on to see what was being posted about them, there's just no way for them to defend themselves in this particular situation.
So lots of men were unhappy about the potential information circulating about them online, whether it was true or not, but even the fact that it was up there, because this is potentially really personal stuff. It's dating experiences and maybe like one person's sexual experiences. And then in July, it was hacked. What do we know about the hack? Who was behind it? Why did they do it? What kind of information did they take, and what was leaked?
So the information was posted by an anonymous user on 4chan. So 4chan is a forum site. It's very famous for having a lot of incels, misogynist groups, people that often want to do women a lot of harm go to this site. So it's really worrying that the data was shared there. From what we know, the anonymous user was the one that actually hacked the data. So essentially this 4chan user posted it on one of the forums, and within that leak there were 70,000 pictures of women, IDs, addresses, other information. And what this information was verification selfies. So in order to access the app, which is completely anonymous, a woman had to take a photo of herself and send it through to be verified as a woman. So in essence, what happened was when this was posted to 4chan, there was a celebration. Misogynist groups online had been hating the T app for a really long time. And as we stated earlier, there's lots of really, fair critique of the app, but a lot of that became quite misogynistic on these sort of online forums, and they've been talking for quite a long time about wanting to bring it down.
And you spoke to some of the women whose data was leaked. What did they say? Where did it end up?
So both the women actually came across their information that was leaked on social media. So one had it sent to her by a friend, and the other one, just saw it as she was scrolling. So one of the places that the data ended up was the women's locations were leaked, and that was made into a map where the locations were pinpointed across the US. Not necessarily a home. So when you take a photo, there's metadata that comes along with the selfie, and that metadata gives like coordinates. So wherever the user was when they took the selfie, for a lot of women that was their homes, but it was other places as well. So the woman that I spoke to, she saw the map, clicked on it, zoomed in, and it was her address exactly pinpointed on the map.
Worst case nightmare, isn't it?
So frightening. And like in her case, she had previously been stalked by an ex-partner. He no longer knew where she lived now. He didn't know any details about her anymore. Now that information is out there for the world to see. Another woman, essentially there was like this game that was posted. So they took all of the images of the women in the leak and put them against each other in a versus game. And as the user, you could choose which woman was the most attractive. And then it came out with a leaderboard. So these images and like screenshots of this game were shared everywhere. And one of the posts went quite viral, and this woman was in the post and was, of course, completely humiliated and had so much hate go her way, particularly because it was on incel forums, some really misogynistic hate.
So this was like an act of revenge, potentially.
Yeah, well, it felt like retribution, really. And when you looked at the 4chan forum where it was posted, the glee that some of these users posted in like being excited that these women's data had leaked was very like worrying to see. And they saw it as, oh, well, we're doxing them because they've already doxed us. Doxing being revealing the location of a user online. So for them, it was like, well, this is our reward really for having dealt with this app in the first place.
And I saw that they created like rival male apps too.
Yeah, so there were lots of spin-off like apps that were just for men to rate women, but there was no cover that this was for safety at all. It was clearly just a way to attack the women in the leak, but also just women in these guys' lives. There were also Telegram chats that were created to create AI-generated porn of the women in the leak and also just share non-consensual images of other women.
The data and the photos of the women, they were meant to be for verification purposes. And weren't they meant to be deleted right after they were uploaded?
Exactly. So the privacy policy from the T app said that when the verification image was taken, it would be sent off. And once it was verified, once that user could get in, it was meant to be deleted. So the fact that this data was being stored at all and being stored in a way that was so easily accessible to the public is extremely worrying for everyone on the T app.
Totally.
And also the fact that it was such a controversial thing that, everyone could see that this would get blowback.
What has the company behind the T dating advice app said about the hack? Did they have enough security in place to protect these women who were going there for safety?
So a spokesperson for the T app said that they're working to identify and notify users whose personal information was involved and notify them under applicable law. And they also said that affected users would be offered identity theft and credit monitoring services. They also said that they bolstered resources to enhance security for current membership and that they're proud of what they've built and that their mission is more vital than ever.
We also asked T whether defamatory comments are allowed on the app and if it verifies information posted. And we asked T if it breached its own privacy policy, which said that users' photos would be deleted once their ID had been verified. T declined to comment. Where does this leave us and online dating now? Because it feels like this kind of story makes neither men nor women feel safe online.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? Because at the moment, we're seeing actually young people in particular turn away from online dating and dating generally. And online dating does have a role to play in that. So as we spoke about, women have felt quite unsafe with online dating for a little while now. And that's because, if I set you up with a friend of mine, there's some social need there for that friend to behave well and, treat you nicely and not ghost you and not catfish you. But when you know nothing about the person, it's a complete stranger, they owe you nothing and they could really do anything, right? And then on the men's side, I spoke to an expert who said men's fear when online dating is, having things taken out of context. A stupid message that they might send might be, screenshotted and sent in the girls' group chat. And guilty. We've all done that, right? We've sort of made fun of other people in our group chats. And the T app really speaks to that fear because it's this idea of having everything you've done in a relationship taken out of context, popped on an app for everyone to judge and everyone to see. So I think this whole leak really speaks to that idea of women do not feel safe online dating and that fear that men have that they'll be humiliated.
Yeah, that lack of context, not really knowing anything else about that person or having any other friends in common. That's why I don't give my number out to people until I meet them in real life. And I don't know if you do this, but I definitely use my journalistic skills or really basic skills. I just Google the first name and where they work, and often a profile comes up and I can just find out a bit about who they are and if they are who they say they are.
Yeah, we all do the online stalk before we go on a date with someone. I've done that so many times. It's been extensive and I think everyone can do that. But I think there's the other thing that you can do where it's meet in a public place. There's a few other tips and tricks. Make sure you know that a friend or family member knows where you're going.
Sometimes I put my Find My iPhone thing on and I let my mum track where I'm going for the whole evening. And maybe that's safety gone too far, but that actually makes me feel I'm safe.
Exactly. I think that's all it's about. It's about making you feel safe, right?
Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's it from us. But if you enjoyed this episode, please do like, share, follow, subscribe. We are right here on YouTube 5 days a week. And 2 of those, you can watch us chatting away in the studio with some of your favourite guests. I'm Hannah. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service. And we'll see you next time.